Welcome to VisAbleBlackwoman, the podcast. My name is Janine, and I'm your host. This season, I'm focusing on television shows, films, and podcasts that I really enjoyed. I'm giving you a weekly breakdown of the podcasts and TV shows and films that I loved. This week, I have for you two television shows that really moved me in totally different ways that are connected to love. The first is a dramedy called There She Goes. It's on BritBox, which is available on the Prime Video channels. It's created by Sean Pye, who wrote is the head writer. He also wrote the Sacha Baron Cohen movie Bruno. It stars David Tennant, who was Doctor Who, incredible, and an actor, a female actor who won the BAFTA awards for this role in 2019, Jessica Hines, and a lovely child actor named Miley Locke. There She Goes is a 30-minute drama comedy about a family who is raising a child with disabilities. Her name is Rosie. Miley plays Rosie, and the show is a dual reality time jump. So we are with them in 2017, and we are also with them in like 2007. So we see Rosie as a child and Rosie as like a 9-year-old. There's about a 9-10 year difference between the episodes or the time frames that are shown in the television show. And I really like this construct because it gives you, number one, when I looked up some research, I did a little researching on families with children with disabilities. The statistics say that the majority of many marriages end in divorce or separation when they're dealing with children with disabilities, just because of the challenges of raising a child. And this couple through the series is sticking together. And they also have a child who is he's 5 years older, named Ben, who's played by Eden Hayhurst. Lovely young actor. And he is a quote unquote normal functioning child. And what I also love about Ben is as he's in middle school during the first season, maybe he's in upper primary school how they frame it in the UK, and he's kind. He's not often, when you are seeing young people, teenagers, like middle school age up into the teen years on television, in order to add conflict, particularly in television in the United States, the kids are assholes. They're just jerks to their parents. This kid is really funny. He's got the wry British sense of humor right along with the parents, and it makes sense that he would be the child of these parents, and they have a relationship with them. They met in the 90s, and the parents did, and it's nice to see folks who are middle-aged and my age group with kids, having the child. It's like they don't specify her age, the mom's age. The mom is called Emily. They don't specify Emily's age, but she's an older mom when she's pregnant with Rosie. And so it made me think about, as friends who waited to have their kids a little later, the concerns that you have with different sorts of issues that come up with babies that are not that are had by older moms. That's just my thought. It doesn't come up. That's not a spoiler, but this is such a well-written and realistic dramedy that it made me really think about different aspects of motherhood, of family, of fatherhood, of how this family dealing with this child who is not quote unquote normal and doesn't stick to the norms of our society. She's not verbally, she's not able to talk using words. So she cries, she makes sounds, she makes gestures. And it's very, I have a friend who has a child who has learning disabilities. And she was saying that one of the moms in her group has a child that is not verbal. And when she saw this, uh, was watching this, that she really appreciated the authenticity that the filmmakers used when creating the show, because it was exactly like how it is when you have a child that doesn't have the verbal skills at this level. And the thing is, y'all, it like watching the first episode, they don't mess around with getting into what it's like for this family and what the challenges are. And David Tennant is great because he's kind of an asshole and he's working. And like a lot of men in relationships or marriages, when a child comes along, they feel like they're second fiddle, and then they just focus on work and just go out to the bar after. But imagine being a mom who is really, she was a scientist herself with her own career. They decide to have the second child. The first child is so lovely, they have a second one as a pair, and this child ends up having some challenges where she is the only person who gives up her career to have to take care of this child, the challenges of that. And this, so it's just really, there's that. And it's also there's so many great moments. The acting in it is just phenomenal. Every single cast member is just a gem. They have a next door neighbor who has a child who's the same age as Rosie, a little girl. His neighbor's name is Chris. He's played by Ben Wilbond. And it's a lovely thread to see the two fathers who are next door neighbors. And if Rosie had been a fully abled child, probably they would have grown up together and been friends. And to see what a non-disabled child who's doesn't have the disability, her progression throughout life in the 10 years compared to Rosie's progression through life, in the positive effects and the negative effects, it's just it's fascinating to watch. It literally, watching this kept me up. I stayed up all night watching 2 seasons, and I can't say more about There She Goes. It's truly excellent. Check it out, y'all. All right, the second yum of the week. Everybody's talking about it. That's right, episode 3 of The Last of Us. And if you don't know it, The Last of Us is on HBO Max. And the premise of it is, after a global pandemic destroys civilization, a hardened survivor, Joel, takes charge of a 14-year-old girl Ellie, who may be humanity's last hope. It stars Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. Both are alumni of Game of Thrones, different seasons. Both, yeah, I don't know. If you haven't seen Game of Thrones, I won't spoil it, but both of them were on Game of Thrones. And this series is also written and produced by the folks who created the PlayStation video game. So Neil Druckmann made the video game. I never played the video game, never knew about it. And Craig Mattson also created and wrote Chernobyl on HBO, which was, if y'all haven't seen Chernobyl, you need to. So this episode, episode 3, has the story of Bill and Frank, who folks will know from the video game. I'm not giving any spoilers. There's no spoilers in this, but it's this lovely, lovely telling of this couple. Bill is played by Nick Offerman, and who is in Parks and Recreations, and Frank is played by Murray Bartlett, who was in The White Lotus and recently Welcome to Chippendales. First of all, I'd love to see Murray Bartlett play a role where he doesn't die. I mean, we all die, but come on, y'all. Oh my goodness, it's something. And this episode, it's been controversial because it features two gay men in a relationship, and on IMDb, you can review different, you can, anybody, like you can go right now and write a review on any of the things on IMDb that you've seen. But it's been review bombed, this episode, with over 30,000 one-star ratings because of the LGBTQ plus love story. Not surprising. The thing that's really lovely about this episode, so I'm going to say, okay, watch it. And if you loved it, give it a good review on IMDb. Show it some love to, because it's great. But it's just this lovely story about people who are in, who not because of their sexual orientation, but just, Nick Offerman's character, Bill, is somebody who is a survivalist and was, perfectly kind of happy that that the pandemic happened and that he's alone, and he was prepared. So he's doing his thing, and this person comes into his life and it just totally changes everything. What's wonderful and lovely about The Last of Us is that it is about love. The whole series is about love. And if you listen to the podcast on HBO has a podcast with the original voice actor of Joel and the producers, directors, writers every week. That's what the main writers have said over and over again, is that, we in our Western society get stuck on what a love story is. It's this ace, they meet, they love each other, they live happily ever after. But people do some really fucked up things for love. People have to deal with the negative impact of love. And every love story ends in tragedy because of our mortality, right? So listening to my process for watching The Last of Us, since I don't have anybody to talk to about each episode, is to listen to these two podcasts, which I actually do love: The Last of Us podcast and X-Ray Vision on Wednesdays. Both of those podcasts, really, the Last of Us is the official podcast of the show. So they go into detail about the technical aspects of the show, what the writer's intentions were, and what happened in the game. It's based on a video game. I don't play video games, so I never knew that this existed. And episode 3 just takes it to a whole new level of excellence, where we can really see how people would survive the actual zombies, how humans are able to adapt to danger, that when it is a consistent and usual danger, right? But when the danger is other humans that are unpredictable and will do anything for love, that's the real challenge. I was a fan of The Walking Dead, the first maybe 4 or 5 seasons. And then I just, they lost me. And I never got into any of the spinoffs. And The Last of Us does I think it takes this genre to a 21 Days Later, that film level of zombie apocalypse. It's really, it's just, it's so, the realism. It's, I can see myself talking or being in situation and being in relationship with each of these characters, and it's totally believable. Everything on scene with both of these shows that I loved and that moved me this week, from the acting style to the writing to how the bodies are portrayed to the costumes. I want to say that about There She Goes. Everyone looks like real people. You know, nobody's made up. Their hair is not blown out. Everyone's real. The bodies are real. In The Last of Us, both Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett have like beards. And it's realistic that they wouldn't be shaving during the apocalypse. So they'd have these big beards, and like why they need to shave every day. And it's wonderful actually to see a gay male couple living their life and having a relationship that's dealing with things that happen in a long-term relationship through this episode. So The Last of Us this week, episode 3, a definite yum. Now for my yuck. The thing that I didn't quite, it wasn't quite great. The first 2 episodes of Shrinking on Apple TV Plus. It's not great. It really, unfortunately, it's about, according to IMDb, it is a grieving therapist starts to tell his clients exactly what he thinks, ignoring his training and ethics. He finds himself making a huge change to people's lives, including his own, which is great. And it's created by Brett Goldstein. Jason Segel is also a creator and he stars in it, and Bill Lawrence. Jessica Williams is in it, and Harrison Ford is in it. It's really, I like Jessica Williams, and I'm always rooting for her. And yet, whenever I see Jessica Williams, I see the same person that I saw on The Daily Show. Kind of a snarky, she's created this snarky young Black woman thing, which is great for one character, but where do you go from there? And the series is written by Brett Goldstein, who's great in Ted Lasso. This tries to take Ted Lasso to America and make him a therapist who's lost his wife. So it's got the same rhythms and styles with American actors without the whimsy that Ted Lasso had. I love Harrison Ford, but he looks like he's just kind of checking himself off to make a paycheck for this. He's like cashing his check with this television series. How much money does he need to make? I mean, he's in this 1883. It's great to see him working again. I don't know if he just really needs to make money. It's the thing that worked with Ted Lasso was we were in a global pandemic and everybody was just fucking scared. And to be able to see something like Ted Lasso where you could go and just be in this world where people were super nice to each other. And there's some snark, but it was British. So it just, that British wit and sense of humor worked. The dynamic of placing an American in this British culture really worked, and it was funny and eclectic for that time. The problem with Shrinking is that it tries to be like, it's like Ted Lasso for therapists with Americans, and it's not funny. It's very saccharine. Watching this series, I watched 2 episodes and I felt like, oh, I'm getting a cavity. This is like way too sweet. And it's great having casting with a multiracial cast. It's lovely to be dealing with Black folks and white folks without having to have race as a major character in the drama. but also it's kind of uh, it's not it's jarring to have a white therapist, a white male therapist with a black male therapist counseling him on violence when in our culture, the way that our without acknowledging the culture in a way that is um